On. Okay, I am here today after a brief hiatus with my good friend and extraordinary astrologer, Mr. Micki Pellerano. Micki studied with Austin Coppock, and he is one of Austin's teaching assistants. Also studied with Freedom Cole and knows a ton about astrology, astrological magic, Vedic astrology, and I've learned a lot from Micki, and so I'm very feel very blessed to be hanging out with him as I'm making my way back home, and I'm really glad that he agreed to help me out with this week's show because I've been in transit and I'm having a little slow at putting things together. So it's nice to have a helping hand and somebody that I can shoot the shit with on this week's excellent edition of This Week in Space. You want to tell folks a little bit about yourself and your practice?
No, that was a good intro, I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
Glad I nailed it. So yeah, we've got a pretty brief week in space. Just three transits that we'll be talking about, and me and Micki will just be chewing the fat about what's going on in the celestial spheres. And Micki brings a great perspective, seen thousands of people at this point. And so has a very good sense of like this is how things show up in the actual chart, a theoretical knowledge as well as a practical application of astrological technique in the ways that transits or relationships between planets and archetypes actually show up in real world application. So, kicking it all off, Wednesday, which happens to be Mercury's day, October the 1st, Mercury in Libra will be squaring Jupiter in Cancer. This is going down at 22 degrees and 34 arc minutes. And so, square is a tense aspect. However, squares with Jupiter tend to maybe not be as problematic as, say, a square with a malefic. Do you have any thoughts on like a square to Jupiter and how that might differ to, say, Mercury square malefic or something else?
Yeah, to me it's kind of like raise your hand if you wouldn't want Jupiter in your 10th house,
Mhm.
right? And so if I'm Mercury in Libra and Jupiter's 10th from me, I might not mind that so much, and especially Jupiter Mercury. It's a strong combination, derived from Vedic astrology, like a conjunction of Jupiter and Mercury is known as it's kind of a sage, I would say a combination, right? Like a sage, a wise person, a compiler of knowledge. So Austin actually has Mercury 10th from his Jupiter. So
Mhm.
it's like a, a broad reservoir, right, for receiving and conveying information,
Mhm.
right? If Mercury is receiving and conveying data and fashioning it into skill, and then Jupiter is 10th from that, right? So in the service of broader philosophical scope and emotional depth and abundance even,
Mhm.
and uh um and also like expanded space for the retention of knowledge
Mhm.
and fashioning it to skill too.
Yeah, I think that's one of the ways that I've been thinking about this square is, if Mercury is sort of the information that we're picking up from our everyday environment, the way that we're processing it, Jupiter can help bring a lot of space for us to sit with that and rest with that. Because I think Mercury has a tendency to be sort of always out there, always running around, always like gathering information, being in conversation, meeting with people, like on the phone, doing the emails, right? It's a lot of like information communication, information gathering. But I think Jupiter and Cancer can really help us like to sit and rest in the information that we're gathering. And as we sit and rest with it, it allows us to process that not on a like cognitive intellectual level, but also on a more embodied physical level, which I think is really important. So we're not always just going off to the next thing, going off to the next thing, going off to the next thing. And I guess with the square, and two planets sort of at cross purposes. which one is sort of taking the lead and which one is needing to wait a little bit. And the places that they, often talks about a square as like two planets coming to a stop sign at the same time, and like which one gets the right of way. And that's where that sort of, things can get a little messed up. And, if the Jupiter can sort of expand the amount of information that we're wanting to take in and being like, oh, I need to talk to more people or do more things. And, if we get them to work together, find a kind of integration, it's like, okay, how do I sit with and rest with the information that I'm gathering and processing so that I'm not always like leaping ahead to the next thing, and really sitting with and getting an opportunity to kind of integrate these things.
Yeah. And not just the data and information and knowledge, but it's broader meaning,
Hmm.
so,
Yeah.
like metaphysical and philosophical and magical pursuits. If those two planets are in the same stop sign and they're in conversation with each other, right, we can get both of those features, if Mercury, right, rules. If you see somebody play the violin with all the skill of Virgo, but it doesn't have any of that like emotional, spiritual depth of Pisces, right? Something's going to be missing.
Hmm.
And the same goes for like if there's all this like gushy, abstract Pisces energy, but it's not executed with the precision and skill of Virgo, then something will also be missing, right? So we can get that. The signs of Mercury and Jupiter always oppose each other, facts and figures
Hmm.
versus myth and metaphor and stuff like that. So if they're at the same stop sign, that is a form of communication therein, right? Like if Jupiter's 10th from, in a sense, it's in a commanding position there. For Mercury to gear its capacities toward that scope, and uh, uh, yeah, magical and broader meaning behind intellectual pursuit.
Yeah, and I think, and this is maybe like a personal example is, I've been traveling, having all these experiences, gathering all of this information, gathering all of this data. And one of the things that I'm really considering is how do I fit this like big experience into like my everyday life, and sitting and gathering all of the data that I've been living through or experiencing, and how do I fit that into updating my system into making meaning from the facts and figures that I've been gathering. Because I can be like, okay, I did this on this day, I did this on this day, had this conversation, but then how do we synthesize this into a bigger meaning so that we're not just stacking experience on top of itself, and we're not just like gathering information, but how do we sort of plug this into or integrate or update the stories that we're telling, the bigger narratives that we're telling, instead of just the like day to day, like this is the information that I'm processing, this is the story that I'm telling about myself, this is the story that I'm telling about this experience. How do we update that into the sort of larger mythological story that we are spinning, or put it into a bigger context? And I think that when Mercury and Jupiter are functioning well together, even in this like sort of they're coming to the stop sign at the same exact moment, when they can figure out who gets the right of way, then there's the ability to sort of take the small story that I'm constantly telling about like my experience through the world, and put that into the fabric of a larger kind of mytho consciousness. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and well, it's a nice strong Mercury too because it's not combust and it's has a mutual reception with Venus there, right?
Hmm.
So that's a very strong connection there between Venus and Mercury with that mutual reception. And um, for me, I suppose it's what the individual pattern here also, right? Weaving it into one's own natal chart, and we have the same ascendant,
Hmm.
right? Yeah,
Scorpio.
we're both Scorpio, so it's our 12th house and our ninth house,
Hmm.
and so like for you, it was like going to these exotic, like exiled, secret, clandestine places, right? The
Hmm.
12th house is the rites of Eleusis, these secret, sealed tombs of initiation, right? The 12th house is what is invisible to society, right?
Mhm.
Places that are remote or secret or whatever. The conversation between that and your ninth house, your belief systems, your
Mhm.
philosophical scope, and also your cosmopolitan experience of the world is the ninth house, right?
Mhm.
And so with me, it's been similar, but it hasn't been as geographic, right? I haven't done any traveling, but I have been uh, immersed in some of the more, let's say, secretive or subconscious, or I would say even to taboo in a way for me, like things that and also like remote areas of my past too,
Mhm.
with things that I've been going through, and how that's how do we get that secret, clandestine, maybe even hitherto unconscious or unknown material of the 12th house, and integrating it into the ninth house, which will always be 10th from it, right?
Mhm.
So it's into the broader framework of our philosophical uh, worldview, really.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
yeah, or like our map of the big world, right?
Yeah.
And I also think about, Mercury and Libra as, working to sort of hold multiple things at one time, right? And always sort of trying to balance out not just who we're talking to and speaking to people diplomatically and, balancing the inner with the outer or the self with the other, but also how do we hold, both the clandestine internal world with the, going out and like updating our philosophy or our map of the world. How do we hold, our inner experience with the outer experience and sort of balancing them in the ways that we're taking in, processing, and communicating the information that we're gathering from the world, and thinking about like again coming back to like the small story that I'm constantly telling myself about my experience and the larger story that I'm concocting about the world. Like, how do we hold both of these simultaneously? How do we hold multiple things at once without them sort of, one constantly outweighing the other, or without sort of constantly juggling this and that, you know?
Yeah. I also like about that mutual reception too. It's like, Mercury does, I guess, tend to do pretty well in air signs in general, but like uh that kind of negotiating craft of Mercury, right,
Mhm.
into the diplomatic, relational, and socially graceful territory of Libra. And then we've got Venus, who normally is has a debilitation or fall in Virgo, so we're getting uh, an environment to which that planet's capacities are restricted, right? But with the mutual reception there, we're getting a stronger conversation
Mhm.
between them, right? So it's almost like the uh, uh, Mercury being more in conversation with the aesthetic and graceful Venusian elements of Libra there, and then Venus into the more well crafted, right,
Mhm.
and well honed um, territory of Virgo with less strain,
Mhm.
because we have that nice relationship going there between them.
And when Mickey's talking about mutual reception, just for the folks at home who might not know, that's when planets are in each other's signs. So Mercury is in Venus's sign of Libra, and Venus is in Mercury's sign of Virgo. So there's this, they're in relationship through this. Being in each other's territory, and they have the ability to resource each other, which can be really helpful because like Mickey was saying, Venus in Virgo is in a sign of their fall, so they're a little under resourced there. But being able to be in relationship with their landlord, right, Mercury, like they can get a little bit more resource, a little bit more support. There's like an easy flow of communication going on between these two planets, which can benefit both of them, which is the mutual reception. Is that correct?
Yes.
Cool. Should we move on to the next transit?
Yeah, it creates a nice bond between them.
Mhm.
Almost is the way I like to look at mutual
Yeah,
reception.
which is if you have that in your chart or if you see that sort of happening in the unfolding astrology, it's Yeah, I like that idea of like the nice bond functioning between them because that can be a place of resource where otherwise, a planet in fall like Venus in Virgo or, a planet in detriment might be a little under resourced. So these are places that we can lean into to get a little bit more support, to, find the ways that even in difficulty, things can come with a little bit of ease. So again with the being able to be a little bit more flowery in our language, a little bit more diplomatic in how we communicate with people, and then also, Venus feeling like a little bit more of beautifying the details in Virgo instead of being so fixated on, oh, I've got to get it perfect, I've got to get it right, and finding the sort of joy in the details and the pleasure in discernment or analysis. And they support each other through these processes.
Yeah, and there's a possibility here for uh yeah, like if V no, actually, scratch what I just said. It's a little too abstract, but yeah, it's kind of like if I'm functioning on like Jonah's property, that's one thing. But if simultaneously he's functioning on mine, then whatever is foreign about the property that is not my own will be, we've got this mutual dependency going
Mhm.
on in that situation, right? And that means, mutual line of support, really, if that's that way. So that's really great, right? It's not uncommon for Venus to be in Virgo while Mercury is in Libra. It's mathematically something that, happens quite a lot. So that's like a really nice uptick for Venus in a sign that is normally challenging.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So moving along to Friday, October the 3rd, we have Mercury in Libra coming off of this square from Jupiter, opposing Chiron, who's retrograde in Aries, and this is occurring at 25 degrees and 30 arc minutes. And so, Chiron sort of has this unfortunate moniker as the wounded healer. And Mercury, again, are cognitive processes, the way that we take in the world, process it, the way that we sort of, what were you saying, like update our skill set based on the information that we're taking in?
Yeah. Receiving and conveying data and information and fashioning it into skill.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And so, I think one of the ways that I think about Mercury, and this is sort of in the neuroscience of things, is the way that we experience the world is not the way that the world actually is. The information that we're taking in from whatever we're doing is filtered through a kind of a set of prior understandings that we have about the world. So we have experiences, they develop a filter that then the world moves through, and our brain kind of updates based on our prior experiences or this mental filter that we have, which tells us when I walk into my kitchen, I know everything is going to be sort of where I left it. And if things are, different, if the refrigerator door is open, if like there's stuff spilled out everywhere, then our brain updates the simulation that we've created and says, okay, there's a problem here. And so we're kind of moving through the world, finding things that fit in with this sort of prior understanding of how everything should be, and then looking for variation. And when we find variation, then it updates our system. And so with this opposition between Mercury and Chiron, I think one of the things that this brings in is the mental filters that have been constructed based on our core wounding, based on like difficult experiences in the past, which create some of the filter that we're going through or that we're experiencing the world through. Because humans have this negativity bias where we're always scanning for danger. This is a evolutionary thing that has helped us to stay alive because good experiences are like whatever. They're great to have, but they don't really keep us alive. But knowing, okay, I went to this place and it was life threatening, I'm never going back there, like actually helps us to stay alive and reproduce and carry on our species. And so I think with this opposition to Chiron, it really brings into the forefront the ways that we have constructed our perception of reality based on core wounding, past trauma, these things that tell a story in our system that I'm never going to let that happen again. And we're filtering our experience through, okay, that person looked at me weird. That reminds me of the time that somebody else looked at me weird and it was threatening. Oh, this person said that thing that triggered this feeling that I got from a partner who we broke up, and now that's like activating this like past wound. And so, really considering the ways that our experience in the current moment may be filtered through some of the difficult, traumatic, painful experiences that we've gone through in the past. And I'm not saying that this is bad or wrong, but something to observe and just noticing, okay, this thing is coming up, or I am looking at the world through a lens that of a person who has been wounded in their past, and like, is this actually accurate to what's going on, or is this being really shaded by a wounded place in myself that I'm working very hard to protect? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So yeah, I guess if Chiron is the wounded healer, it means like one who has the capacity to have wisdom or medicine around an element of, let's say, life experience in which they may have experienced failure or pain before,
Hmm.
right? It's like the paradox that comes with like oh, I know so much about bad relationships. Yeah. So, but yeah. So Chiron is in Aries. That's going to be uh, the ability to have wisdom and healing around because of the maybe concealed benefit of failures or pain around, say, ambition or self-assertion
Hmm.
or confidence and self-serving and winning versus losing
Hmm.
and all that stuff that Aries has to do with. And then if so with an opposition, it's like, yes, Mercury is in um the sign that is the you could say opposite polarity
Hmm.
of Aries, but it could also be seen not as a polarity, but as a continuum. You
Mm.
know, it's like uh, sometimes if you want to go home, a winner with like the trophies and all the spoils of Aries, it's good to be a good negotiator and smooth talker or
Hmm.
seductor or whatever, right? Such as Libra can be. There's different winning can come in all different kinds of guises, right? So even though those signs are opposed, they can also be seen as complements to one another or counterparts to one another, really. And then so yeah, so if Mercury is in Libra and Chiron's in Aries, right? It can be actually like uh, uh, and I would say this is true for me too, like kind of right now, what's going on, being able to intellectualize or create like a cognitive and communicable understanding around how past failures or
Hmm.
past losses or defeats even, right, have geared themselves towards our ability to triumph in a way.
Hmm.
My friend Isaac, he does plant cunning podcast. Do you know him?
Nah.
He's awesome. I said hi, Isaac, if you're watching. I studied Vedic with Isaac, and he plant cunning is a great podcast. And Isaac like very skilled with botany and
Mhm.
gardening and farming and all that stuff. And I was going through it recently, and I called him and I was like, "Hey, I was like, look at all these plants that." He's like, sometimes having a green thumb, you got to kill a lot of plants to get one, And
Uh-huh.
he was totally right, of course. It was a nice way of looking at it, but it's like that's that's a good way of maybe intellectualizing that pain or that
Hmm.
loss, right? And coming to an understanding of like, oh, this can be uh, uh, this can be used towards the peace-loving and harmonious, and with Libra, even aesthetic,
Hmm.
right? Or relational, elements of things, maybe uh, uh, that communication of uh, Mercury and Libra, um, being to help with where we might have been self-serving before, right?
Hmm.
Or aggressive before,
Hmm.
say with Aries, and maybe achieving some grace or understanding around that
Hmm.
with the Mercury power in opposition,
Hmm.
which of course is not always pleasurable. I mean that's why there can be contention with an opposition when things clash. It doesn't necessarily be pleasurable, but that doesn't mean that it's not valuable.
Yeah, yeah. And I love this idea of sometimes you got to kill a bunch of plants to get a green thumb,
Yeah,
right? Because we can just end with the story of I'm not good at this,
right.
oh, I'm a bad gardener. I can't grow anything, and that's I think that like Chiron wound around like I suck, I'm a failure, this will never work, and just ending there. But, how do we sort of move through that? And keep updating what is possible. And the ways that we do that is through lived experience, right? Through
Yeah.
trying things out, even though there's like failure. But, I think that failure is just sort of like changing from one state into another state. Like this process has like come to its conclusion, and I can try that again and try it in a different way and update what I've learned from this thing that didn't work the way that I thought it would and come into, okay, like now I'm also learning, all these ways not to treat a plant so that I can develop a better relationship with it and I can, learn to succeed and come home a winner. Right. But the way that we do that is through trial and error and updating our knowledge around a system or a practice or a way of being in the world.
Yeah, like I was living out in Eastern Long Island and in late and I created this beautiful menagerie of plants. Like I'd really like for the first time just fallen in love with like gardening and landscaping and all this stuff. And then I decided to move a lot of that stuff from, you know, Eastern Long Island to Brooklyn in late summer. And I mean, it was like plant holocaust.
Oh
Oh
no.
my God. It was like death was like, it was horrible. It was like I was like, oh my God. I was like, what have I done? And it's hard. I feel bad. I'm like, oh my God, I killed all of this stuff. And it's like, yeah, but like now I know never do that again.
Right.
Like moving a plant is very stressful. Also, it's about like 10 degrees cooler in East Hampton than
Mhm.
it is in Brooklyn almost at all
Yeah.
times. So it's like not only are they in different soil, but there's a shock of like temperature change,
Hmm.
and they did not
They
like
weren't feeling
that.
it.
Oh yeah, no, it was like they were just like it was like mass suicide essentially, and
Oh
in a matter
man.
of days too. And I was like, and I was like rehabilitating and cutting off parts and trying to regrow them and stuff. And like Isaac said that it's like, hey, it's like it's part of it,
Hmm.
It's like there's no other way for, I wouldn't have had the now I've observed closely what that looks like. And I won't make that mistake again. And if Chiron is the wounded healer, I'm also equipped to tell others not to do it.
Hmm.
If anybody's like, oh, you know what? Let's go ahead and move that Japanese maple from uh, Sag Harbor to, you know, New York City. I'll be like, don't do it.
Yeah, not the time. Not
Yeah.
the time. Bad election for that.
Yeah.
Um,
Like just
yeah,
leave it be,
yeah.
you know?
I also like that you sort of brought in the knowledge of plants and gardening, botany, and the medicinal properties of plants into this conversation. Because the other, piece about Chiron is he's a centaur. He's got the body of a horse or an animal body and the torso and head of a human being. And so there's this thing encoded in the symbol of Chiron of the integration between our intellect, our logical, our rational processes, and the sort of animal body and our connection with nature and the ways that we are in relationship with plants and relationship with the physical world, the natural world, the animal world. And just in this example of like, oh, I've got to go back to Brooklyn. I'm going to move all these plants in the summer. That is, I imagine, like a logical thought process of I've got to move. I want my plants with me. I'm going to bring them with me. And then the sort of animal part that's like connected to the cycles of nature, maybe there's a wisdom in there that's like, oh no, don't do that, right? But like a lot of times our logical mind, because we have time constraints, because we have financial constraints, because we think we have to do it this way, sort of overrides the quieter voice of the animal intuition.
Yeah.
And I think with this opposition, it's an opportunity to like bring these things into relationship. The mercurial qualities that are like, oh, I'm gathering all of this information and processing it in this way so I can, apply these skills into my life. With the animal part, that's, maybe more intuitive wisdom, is maybe more emotional wisdom, maybe picking up on the vibes of situations. And how do we hold both of these simultaneously in order to, be able to have them inform each other, the animal wisdom and the human intellect, instead of overriding our intuition with the, oh, well, this is how I think things should work because this is what it looks like mapped out on a piece of paper. And, I know all of the calculations from this, and sort of negating what the heart might be saying, what our guts might be saying, what the information that we're picking up on an unconscious level from the vibe of a situation, and really allowing some space for that wisdom to kind of integrate instead of being like, oh, I think I know what I need to do, or I think I know how this is supposed to go.
Yeah, and that was how it happened.
Mhm.
I was like, oh, like I'm gonna show up with like $600 worth of beautiful plants. I'm not gonna, I was like,
What could possibly go wrong?
I was like, I don't really want to leave them here. Like the front, the front of my house in Brooklyn will just look gorgeous, and it did. My neighbors were like, "Oh my God, what is this Shangri-La that you've created in front of your house?" And I was like, "Oh yes, it's beautiful." And then like it was so embarrassing because like 2 days later they were just
Oh
like turning
no.
black and dying. Like it was, they were dying so quickly. I just couldn't eat. And I was trying so hard. Like my house became this like plant emergency room, And but yeah, I was thinking of like, the economic and um maybe to some degree even social, right? I
Mhm.
want like it's nice to impress your neighbors and
Mhm.
whatnot, element there that I didn't really think of those primal laws of nature. Like
Uh-huh.
plants don't like getting dug up and
Mhm.
moved and shocked by
Yeah.
temperature changes, and
Yeah.
those rules have to be sort of like obeyed,
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it's like the just like you said, there's kind of like very human interests, and then
Mhm.
like uh when there's a disconnect with the natural world or the instinctive processes or the physical connectivity there, then it's uh disaster can occur.
Yeah. And
Yes.
you've sort of named the Chiron in Aries, like heroic, victory. My neighbors really like this. I did something good for my neighbors.
It was
Everybody,
yeah,
yeah.
it was
Yeah, that's a good
impressive.
feeling. That's a good feeling.
It was so
Yeah.
beautiful, and it was super embarrassing because like
Yeah.
with like you could just watch them go, and it was like, oh my God, I was like I felt like such a dumbass,
Hmm.
but
Right. And then the Chiron in Aries also of like, oh, I'm a failure, right? And like internalizing that sense of failure. And it's like, okay, yeah, again, how do we not like rest there? How do we allow it to like update our system and be like, okay, next time I'm gonna apply what I've learned and update the way that I sort of navigate these situations.
yeah.
Yeah.
how much closer I am to my Green Thumb award because I've been through I watched it happen.
Hmm.
I did it, I watched it. There's nothing like lived experience
Hmm.
to embed knowledge.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, it looks pretty kind of nice out there now.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. It's at least like doable
Hmm.
now, but oh man, it was bad. I'll be
Yeah.
right back. I'm grabbing a drink in my
Yeah.
throat. So.
And also like how do we not stop at the story of I can't grow plants or I'm bad at this? Because I think it's so easy to have an experience that's painful or where we like failed and then that just like tells a story that oh, I'm not good at this. I can't do computers or I can't do gardening or I can't do this thing. And I think a way of sort of shifting that around is being like, up until now, I have not been good at this thing, but I'm working on trying, or I'm working on updating, or I'm working on getting better at it. Which, instead of stopping at this, like, prior kind of mental process that tells us I am bad at this or I'm not good or I'm a failure, how do we leave some space for the ways that we can grow, we can develop, we can evolve what we're capable of and what we're skilled at, even if it's, even if you're not like, oh, I want to be a gardener for the rest of my life, right? How do you move past the story of I'm bad at this and allow some space for, well, I haven't been great at this, but I've had experiences that I can learn from and that allows me to get better and do something that might bring joy and fulfillment, even if I'm not going to be, the greatest gardener of all time. Because, I think that there's also this sense of it's got to be the best or it's not worth it, which I don't think helps us very much. Um, you want to move on to our last transit of the week?
Mm.
Okay. Saturday, October 4th, we have Venus in Virgo, again in their fall, coming into a conjunction with the South Node in Virgo. This is happening at 18 degrees and 14 minutes. And now, usually I don't talk about the nodes very much during this show. However, because we have a light week, and also because Micki has a lot of experience with the Vedic tradition, which has a wealth of knowledge about the nodes of the moon and uses it pretty often in that system. I wanted to bring this in. And also, Venus conjunct the South Node, I think, is a pretty big deal. And before we jump into it, I also just want to name that Venus was conjunct the North Node in Pisces back on February 1st, April 1st, and then one last time on April 23rd. And during the first conjunction, that was the one on February 1st, Neptune was conjunct Venus in the North Node as well. And then for the second two conjunctions, Saturn was within orb of a conjunction with both Venus and the North Node. And so as Venus is now conjunct the South Node, I think that there's an opportunity to kind of reflect back on what was going on February and April around relationships, around values, around aesthetics, around beauty, and the North Node being this point of increase, and the South Node an increase and kind of grabbing on or like updating our system and developing new patterns, and the South Node being a place of loss and decrease. And this is an interesting reflection point to notice where we are now based on what we experienced back in February and April, and maybe the things that are the same, maybe the things that are different, the lessons that we can learn, and the ways that we can sort of update our system relationally, aesthetically, and our value structure. Um, but yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Venus conjunct the South Node.
Um, yeah, so I would say that like to the increase piece, yes, but we and increase decrease, and I might also add that like uh the North Node is increase, yes, but to the degree of excess or corruption,
Mhm.
oftentimes, and the South Node is decrease, and the South Node is a malefic, definitely, but with K2, the south node, we get decreased, but into a zone of like refinement or ascetism or
Mm,
uh, 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 dissipation, right? Or abstraction,
mhm,
right? So even though we do have the decrease element, it can be a decrease into territory that is metaphysical and abstract and stuff like this. I know I was talking earlier, like I like to think of people I know who have certain things, like in
mhm,
their chart. And like I have one friend with Venus, K2, who's very uh their aesthetics are dissolved into this world metaphysical and spiritual abstraction.
mhm,
With the nodes also we get chemistry in a sense, right? With both of them. Rahu, these experimentations of there are chemicals that corrupt, right? Such as
mhm,
like acids and things,
mhm,
and and we've got pharmaceuticals like Rahu might be more stimulants, and K2 might be more like dissociatives, right? Or tranquilizers or
mhm,
psychedelics, you might even say.
mhm,
And this person, their aesthetics and sense of beauty, and even to some degree, like partnership areas of life are geared to this very spiritual and abstract and even like the making of tinctures, right? And
mhm,
things like extracts and stuff like
mhm,
that with K2. And then I have another friend who yeah, like I was saying, she has like Marianne Faithfull hair. She's
mhm,
like she is like she's this psychedelic uh personality, I would
mhm,
say. She's a pretty prominent lady, and she's and her knowledge and capacity for aesthetics and artistry is so vast, and so vast and so disseminated so as to have
mhm,
uh spiritual significance,
mhm,
and stuff like that. So with the danger with the South Node, right, or maybe towards the more malefic end of the scale, we do get like errors, kind of like, right, like with abstraction
mhm,
and headlessness. We can get like oversights or clumsiness or things that we um don't see, right? That's
mhm,
one element. Another element of the south node that I would call more on the destructive side of its capacities is maybe uh over purifying, right?
mhm,
Over wait, what was the word I used before? Refining, right?
mhm,
Like over refining to the
mhm.
point where something becomes this like refining something into its spiritual and metaphysical dimensions can be very nice, but it can also be like do I want to do that with my bank account?
Right.
Do I want to do that with my uh like I'm doing it with my record collection, which is right, which is a Venus aesthetic
Yeah.
thing, paring it down, and I'm enjoying it. That's like a voluntary
Mhm.
sort of way. But during the eclipses, I lost my notebook where I was trying to keep track of everything, right?
Right.
So it fell into this zone of like there's error, there's confusion. Where did
Mhm.
I put this notebook where I'm trying to keep such good track of this? And
Right.
the South Node is this cosmic, wood chipper, or
Yeah.
uh it breaks things up into their subparticle, subatomic constituents and stuff like that. So solidity and you know uh there can be an over like, oh hey, I'm going on the master cleanse and then to the sweat lodge and
Mhm.
then to the whatever, and next thing you know you're like, dehydrated and anemic, and right. So it's like that
Mhm.
is definitely one um, uh, right. Well, maybe some of the more malefic
Yeah.
elements of the node.
Yeah. And I guess with Venus in Virgo, especially, we're talking about, right, like Venus in Virgo already wants to refine things down to their like most beautiful, most perfect qualities. And if we're thinking about coming into conjunction with the South Node, I could imagine like a tendency to like over purify, like you were saying, over refine. And you mentioned an example of like selling off your record collection or refining or purifying your record collection through like dissipating it. And I'm thinking about like other ways that Venus could show up conjunct the South Node, like allowing relationships, like being so fixated on like I've got to like purify my aesthetic, right? Like make myself beautiful or refine my aesthetic that it goes into territory of it being unhelpful.
Yeah, it could be an anorexia combination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like yeah, how does that show up in relationship, in like dissolving relationship or like bringing it into an abstract level where, we're not actually present for what's coming up, but we're maybe like in the sort of abstract fantasy of like, oh, this thing that I'm longing for, this thing that I want, or without like really participating in the embodied sense of, oh, this is what it's actually like to be here.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I mean, K2 is very ascetic.
yeah,
Yeah, it's very like monastic.
yeah.
It's not lustful
Hmm.
or excessive or anything like that. So Venus K2 can and I wouldn't say that this um I'm not saying that if you have Venus conjoined K2, you have to be this like prude, chaste thing. It's not because that's not the case. I know too many I've seen too many examples of the contrary. So it's
Hmm.
definitely not that, but it can be.
Hmm.
And it can be that, like say, especially if Saturn were involved,
Hmm.
and which Saturn is
Hmm.
because we have a square with Pisces
Hmm.
Saturn, right?
Yep.
So with the Saturn there, right? K2 Venus can be butterflies, right? South Node is like insects, things that move in swarms and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And if there's Venus is there, like, oh, they'll be beautiful. But like if we have Saturn influence, that's when we can get a little bit more of the like um anorexia,
Hmm.
like around food or around
Or around,
sex
yeah,
or
relationship, like denial of, pleasure, denial of relationship, being
yeah.
like, oh, I need to be by myself. Like this is like too much for me.
Yeah, or like this is this is unhealthy, or
Hmm.
something like that. And it's like, well, Venus and Pisces might let it slide because there's room for everything in the scope of, a fully fleshed out relationship, maybe, but yeah, with K2 Venus and Virgo with a Saturn square there, it can definitely be more of that rigid,
Hmm.
cold, um,
It's got to be like
uh,
this.
yeah, and at least K2 Saturn aren't in super strong
Hmm.
square, but
Right.
Venus is going to be,
Right.
we could say enclosed by them, right?
Yeah.
Like once Venus passes the South Node, and that means she'll be applying to that Saturn square, so it's not, it's not the sexiest time.
No,
Yeah,
difficult time for Venus.
yeah, but the mutual reception with Mercury is going to mitigate that a bit,
Hmm.
right? The mutual reception with Mercury is going to be like, well, but Venus is highly afflicted
Hmm.
because she's square
Hmm.
Saturn, and with one of the nodes,
Hmm.
so that's a double affliction for Venus
Yeah, which makes me think about,
and a
right?
debilitation. Sorry.
Yeah, which makes me think about you brought this mutual reception back in, and so I think one of the things that can happen with Venus conjunct the South Node and coming into square Saturn is we can make up stories around our beauty, like how we look, our aesthetic qualities, around our relationships, around pleasure. We can make up stories in our heads, which may not be factual, right? And Mercury in Libra is like, yo, maybe have a conversation about this. Maybe like get some outside information to help us update the story that we're telling ourselves around like, oh, this relationship isn't perfect, so I've got to get out of this, or like my body doesn't look great, so I'm ugly, right? We're like inventing these stories about how the world is based on these sort of like internal influences or what's arising. And it may not be based in reality, or other people might not have that perception or that experience. And so being able to be like, hey, like, I'm having this feeling. What do you think about this? Like, can we shift some things in the relationship? Or like, hey, I'm thinking about going on a diet, or like whatever, trying this like harsh beauty regime. Like, what do you think about this? Or like, do I, what do you like, how do you think I look? Like, I'm feeling some type of way about my aesthetic qualities, and like getting some information from outside sources to help us balance out the story that we're telling about ourselves,
Yeah,
right?
that's a good example of how like Mercury and Libra can be like a direct uh maybe like balancing factor.
Yeah,
You know that like and even if it's also if it's that, but even if it's also like uh even just the way our kind of reason or
hmm,
intellect might, chime in and be like, whoa, whoa, just let's be a little bit more even keeled here or
hmm.
something like that. And then it's opposed to Chiron, like, oh, that's just that's just that time in high school where you wore the bad pants and
Right.
that's making you, yeah,
No, I hate
or
that
like,
time in high school.
yeah, that's like I mean, that doesn't apply to me, but yeah, but like, it might be it might be past failings or
Right.
wounds or whatnot that are influencing this um very it's yeah it's like Venus is it's a real help the mutual reception because
Yeah.
she's suffering. That's pretty major. That's
Yeah.
that's a lot of that's a lot of what do you call that when there's like a lot of strikes against you, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Shitty.
Yeah. In the sign of fall,
Yeah.
right, with the Saturn issue.
Hmm.
Because Venus K2 in and of itself is not it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Like I've seen I know people with Venus K2 that have beautiful relational and erotic and aesthetic dimension to their life, and that's not in and of itself a problem, but uh Saturn's not going to be helping.
No,
Yeah.
no. And I think about, you're bringing in this sort of like monastic or ascetic quality, that K2 or the South Node has. And like, I don't think of aesthetics as being very like communicative, right? Or like not
Yeah,
like very conversational. It's a kind of a withdrawing from the world.
very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like not talking, just being in prayer, being in meditation, being in study. And yeah, we can really get locked in our heads and create like a version of reality, even if this is a very spiritual version of reality, which may not be tethered to the consensus reality that we're all experiencing. And so being able to like get some information to help update that or like balance that out, I think will be really helpful.
Mm.
And you brought in the like the time that I wore the bad pants in high school or whatever.
I,
That like,
I was trying to think of
yeah,
a bad
yeah,
memory that, yeah.
yeah. But no, I think that's super important, especially with the Mercury opposed Chiron, because it's like, oh, I wore this thing that one time in the past, and that created pain, and so now I see something that is similar to that, so I'm just never going to do that again, or I'm just going to withdraw from the world, or I'm never going outside again, or like I'm never going to take a fashion risk ever again, and I'm just going to wear like a sackcloth or whatever, a fashionable, like a moderately fashionable sackcloth, because I'm so afraid of experiencing the pain that I experienced in the past that I'm just going to like separate or disassociate or check out from an experience of the world that where there might be pain involved.
Yeah, like I'd rather just nobody look at me or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
you know, like
I'm going to disappear.
yeah, like overly modest. And I had a friend once a long time ago, and they used to have a very, I would say garish, but interesting
Mhm.
sense of style. And they transitioned into this like very, it was weird. They almost like regressed into like dressing like a little kid or something, but
Mhm.
very drab. And I was like, what happened? You know? And she goes, I just don't want to be looked at.
Mhm.
And, you know, we were living in New York. I'm like, well, she said, I don't want people to look at me. I'm like, well, guess what they are?
Mhm.
You know, so you might as well,
Mhm.
you know, but that's the thing. It was something like that. It
Yeah.
was almost like a rejection, you know, a rejection trauma, I guess, that was bringing that up, you
Mhm.
know, and then like, but that's that's why the Mercury Jupiter, you know, there will be people who disagree with me
Mhm.
about the square, right? That they're going to see that more in contention. I simply just don't like, especially when it's Mercury Jupiter, you know,
Mhm.
I know so many people with Mercury Jupiter in square that are like both of those faculties are so developed in them, and it's like, yes, a square might be contention, but it is a very ac- prominent and acute dialogue that
Yeah.
those planets are in. So I really see like yes, there could be some you know, conflict around the abstract conception, say, of Jupiter and the
Mhm.
more factual of Mercury,
Yeah.
but that's I think that's a like it'll also be helpful
Yeah.
in this whole scenario, you know, like the Lord of Saturn's Lord is in the sign of exaltation, you know, all this stuff. And so it's like I really do see that wisdom and seeing the bigger picture and being
Mhm.
able to kind of incorporate that intellectually that we get with the sorry, uh Mercury Jupiter square
Mhm.
as as really a good thing, especially in the face of everything else.
Yeah.
And even like you know, in magical practice or spiritual practice, because with Mercury Jupiter we do get that. Like
Mhm.
it's really magical
Yeah.
combination, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I'm glad that you brought that back in because I think that you know, Mercury, Jupiter again, like helps us to see a bigger picture. And I think Jupiter as a planet that can bring some optimism and faith is it's like, okay, can we see a bigger picture that is bigger than just the wounded story that comes up or the rejection trauma or the breakup trauma? Can we see a bigger picture that also includes the good stuff, the stuff that we can be optimistic about, the stuff that we can help us develop faith, the story that allows us to not just like dwell on the wound or the things that aren't working because it's very easy to do that. Again, we have this negativity bias. So it's so easy to just pick up on the stuff that doesn't work, the things that are broken, the places that we felt pain before. And it really requires us to sit in the good stuff and the things that are working in order to like update the system and like really believe that there are positive things out there that can help us to have faith in the path that we're on instead of just looking for danger constantly. And then when we find it and it confirms our, you know, hypothesis that like everything sucks, then like separating or disassociating or checking out from the world and being like, I just don't want anyone to see me or like I don't want to be in relationship with anybody and not just intimate partnership but like you know the relational qualities of the world like being around friends or being around community etc.
Yeah, and this can also extend to creativity.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know, like if Venus is constrained or something,
Hmm.
that can it affects our aesthetics, our relationships, and also our you know, artistic impulse too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we could talk about this all day, but we've got stuff to do, and I'm sure everybody at home or wherever you are probably has some other stuff to do as well. Thank you so much for tuning in to another exciting week in space. I'd like to thank Micki Pellerano.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm
Yeah,
so happy to be here.
yeah, thanks for letting me crash at your house. This is much better than a 13-hour layover
Yeah,
at
no, you're
Heathrow.
not crashing at my house. You're a welcome and esteemed guest
Oh,
and
nice.
dear friend.
Nice. Well, it's good to feel exalted
In
in your
my abode,
yeah, in your abode. Yeah, thank you also
my
very
domicile.
yeah, in your domicile. Thank you all so very much. I should be back at y'all next week, same wizard time, same wizard channel, 11 a.m. Mountain Time, on Monday mornings. Things got a little jacked up because I've been in transit, but once I'm home and settled, we'll get back to our regularly scheduled routine. And I think Micki has inspired me to get back to doing my radio show, which hopefully Micki will be an exalted guest on in the not so distant future because Homeboy's got a great taste in music.
Yeah, I'm like, let's do the radio
Yeah.
show when you're here. And he's being all Venus K2.
Yeah,
He's
no,
like,
don't look
no,
at me.
he's like, I gotta pare
It's got to be
down.
perfect.
Yeah, like no, the music is silenced.
Yeah.
We're yeah.
So I'll be getting back to that as soon as the Venus K2 conjunction dissipates and comes into a square of Saturn where I have to get back to my routines on pain of death. So thanks for the inspiration and thanks for joining me on this week's show. It's great to hear your insight into the astrology and your take on it. I really appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Yours too.
Yeah. So yeah, be well, everybody. Until next time, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and as always, may the force be with you. Bye. Woo.